Hi, my name is Elif, and I come from a wonderful country called Turkey. I was born and raised there, surrounded by my family, friends, and the rich culture of my homeland. Turkey is a beautiful place where East meets West, with bustling cities, full of history and warm-hearted people. I grew up speaking Turkish at home and learning about my traditions, food, and stories from my grandparents. Life in Turkey was familiar and comfortable to me. However, about 2 years ago, I made a big decision that changed my life completely. I moved to Lyon, a lovely city in France. It was not an easy decision because I was leaving behind everything. I knew my family, my friends, my language, and my culture. But I wanted to explore new opportunities, grow as a person, and learn new languages. Moving to France meant starting over in many ways. When I arrived in Lyon, everything was different. The streets looked different, the food tasted different, and the language was different. People around me spoke French, and at first I only knew a little bit of the language. I had learned some French before moving, but using it in daily life was much harder than I expected. I felt nervous when I tried to talk with people because I was afraid of making mistakes. Despite the challenges, I loved living in France. The city was charming with its old buildings, cozy cafes, and friendly people. I enjoyed walking by the river and exploring small parks. But one thing was missing. I needed to speak English. Why English? You might wonder. France is a French-speaking country, and I was already learning French. But English is a global language, spoken by millions of people worldwide. It is the language of business, travel, education, and the internet. I knew that if I wanted to succeed in my career and connect with people from different countries, I had to learn English well. It was the key to unlocking many doors in my life. At first, learning English was very difficult for me. My brain was used to Turkish. When I tried to speak or think in English, my mind would quickly jump back to Turkish words and sentences. It was like my brain had a habit, and breaking that habit felt almost impossible. I remember sitting with my English textbook, trying to form simple sentences, but then my thoughts would automatically translate everything back to Turkish. It was frustrating, and sometimes I felt like giving up. But I didn't give up. I told myself that learning English was a journey, and every journey has challenges. I kept practicing, even when it felt hard. I listened to English songs, watched English movies with subtitles, and read easy books in English. Slowly, I began to understand more and more. Still, the hardest part was not just learning new words or grammar rules. It was training my brain to think in English. When you learn a new language, your brain naturally thinks in your mother tongue and then translates it into the new language. This process is slow and makes speaking or writing feel difficult. I realized that if I wanted to speak English fluently, I had to stop translating in my head and start thinking directly in English. This idea was new to me, but I knew it was important. How could I make my brain switch from Turkish to English? That was the big question. I started looking for answers. I joined English conversation groups in Lyon, where I met people from all over the world. I listened carefully to how they spoke and tried to copy their way of thinking. Sometimes I felt shy because my English was not perfect, but everyone was kind and encouraging. I also discovered many online resources that helped me. I watched interviews with famous American personalities like Oprah Winfrey and Michelle Obama. Their clear and confident English inspired me. I admired how they expressed their ideas naturally, without hesitation or fear. Watching them made me want to be like them, fluent and confident in English. Little by little, I began to practice thinking in English. I told myself to name everything around me in English. When I saw a tree, I said tree instead of ahach. When I felt hungry, I told myself, I am hungry, instead of using Turkish words. Sometimes, I even talked to myself out loud in English while walking or cooking. It was a strange feeling at first. My brain was not used to this new way of thinking. Sometimes I forgot words or made mistakes, but I kept going. I knew that consistency was the key. One day, something amazing happened. While I was waiting for the bus, I caught myself thinking in English without trying. The words came to me naturally. I didn't have to translate anymore. It was as if my brain was waking up and learning a new way to see the world. This was the moment I realized I was on the right path. Learning English was no longer just about studying. It was about changing how I thought and experienced life. But this was only the beginning. I knew I needed to keep practicing and find more ways to make my brain comfortable with English. That's when I discovered powerful tools that helped me even more. And one of the most helpful things I did was watching speeches and talks by Michelle Obama. Her simple, inspiring words taught me how to express myself clearly. She showed me that thinking in English is not about perfection. It's about confidence and courage. Now, I want to tell you more about how watching Michelle Obama's talks helped me improve. But before that, let me share what inspired me to start thinking in English in the first place. My experience watching Oprah Winfrey, who is not only a famous TV host, but also a great motivator for millions of people around the world. One quiet evening after a long day in Lyon, I was scrolling through my phone and stumbled upon an interview with Oprah Winfrey. Oprah is one of the most famous American TV hosts, known not just for her powerful voice but also for her inspiring stories. As I watched, I noticed something very special: the way she spoke English. It was clear, calm, and confident. I was amazed. Here was someone who used English so naturally with such ease. That moment sparked something inside me. I thought, if Oprah can speak so well, why can't I? I decided to try something different from my usual way of learning. Instead of just memorizing grammar rules or repeating phrases, I would try to think in English. This meant that whenever I saw something around me, I would say its English name or describe it in English, not Turkish. At first, this was really difficult. My brain was so used to thinking in Turkish that English words didn't come naturally. For example, when I poured myself a cup of coffee, my mind automatically said kahve, the Turkish word. But this time, I stopped myself and forced my brain to say coffee instead. It felt strange, almost like speaking to a new language inside my head. Sometimes I even stumbled and mixed the languages, saying kahve and coffee almost at the same time. But I kept going. Day after day, I practiced this simple but powerful trick. I looked around my small apartment and named everything in English: table, chair, window, door. When I went to the kitchen, I thought, I need to buy apples and oranges. Slowly, these English words started to feel less foreign and more familiar. One of the funniest things I did was talk to myself in English while walking in the park near my home. Imagine a woman speaking to herself out loud in English. People probably thought I was crazy. But I didn't care. I told myself stories, asked questions, and described the world around me in English. For example, I said, "Look at the beautiful and trees. The sun is shining. Today is a good day." This simple habit helped me realize something very important. Thinking in English was not just about vocabulary or grammar. It was about training my brain to switch languages naturally. The more I practiced, the easier it became. I began to catch myself automatically thinking in English without trying. I also used small moments during my day to practice. When I cooked dinner, I described the recipe in English in my mind. When I took the bus, I planned what I would say in English if I met someone new. I even started dreaming in English sometimes, which was surprising and exciting. But there were moments of frustration too. Sometimes I forgot words, and my brain wanted to jump back to Turkish. Sometimes I felt slow and tired because thinking in a new language is hard work. But I reminded myself of my goal: to think and speak English naturally. So I kept pushing through the challenges. One day, a friend from Turkey asked me how I improved so quickly. I told her about this new habit of thinking in English every day. She laughed and said it sounded like a crazy idea, but I knew it was working for me. As the weeks passed, I noticed changes. I could hold longer conversations in English without searching for words. My confidence grew. I started to understand English movies and songs better. The words felt alive, not just memorized facts. My brain was becoming bilingual. I also found new inspiration by watching famous Americans who spoke English with power and grace. Oprah was just the beginning. I discovered Michelle Obama, whose speeches and interviews showed how strong and clear English could be. Her words were simple but full of meaning. I wanted to learn how she expressed herself so beautifully. That's when I realized my next step. I would listen carefully to Michelle Obama's speeches and try to think like she does, in English. This was more than just learning new words. It was about understanding how to think, feel, and solve problems in English. So, my journey to think in English continued with new energy and a clear goal. I wasn't just memorizing anymore, I was living the language. And this is where I met the real power of thinking in English. One evening, as I was searching for English videos online, hoping to find something inspiring and easy to understand, I came across a TED Talk by Michelle Obama. I had heard her name before. She was the First Lady of the United States, and many people admired her for her intelligence, kindness, and strength. But I had never really listened to her speak carefully. That night, I decided to watch her talk. What I found was more than just words. It was a powerful story told in clear, simple English. Michelle's voice was calm but confident. She shared stories about her life, her childhood, her struggles, and how she stayed strong when things were hard. The way she spoke was different from the English I usually heard on TV or in movies. It was slower, clearer, and full of emotion. I felt like she was talking directly to me, encouraging me to believe in myself and never give up. Because my English was still not very strong, I couldn't understand everything in the first few minutes, so I decided to listen again and again. Each time I caught more words and phrases. I started writing down new words that I didn't know before, like resilience, opportunity, and community. I looked up their meanings and practiced saying them aloud. This little routine became part of my day. The most helpful part for me was how Michelle told stories. She didn't just say facts or information, she painted pictures with words. For example, she described a moment when she was nervous about giving a speech but chose to face her fear anyway. I imagined myself in her place, feeling that nervous excitement and pushing myself to speak anyway. This made the English more real and easier to understand. At first, I still found myself translating from Turkish to English in my mind. When Michelle said challenge, I would think zorluk in Turkish. But I realized that this translation slowed me down and made it harder to learn. So, I started a new exercise. I would listen to a sentence in Michelle's talk and then pause. Instead of translating, I tried to repeat the sentence in English using my own words. Sometimes I made mistakes, but I didn't worry about that. The important thing was to get my brain to think directly in English. I also recorded myself repeating her sentences and played them back. This helped me hear my mistakes and improve my pronunciation. After a while, I felt more confident speaking out loud. I even imagined having conversations with Michelle, what questions I would ask her, and how she might respond. This creative exercise was fun and made my brain more flexible with English. Michelle's talks taught me more than just language. She showed me how to think positively and be persistent. Her example helped me believe that learning English was possible, even if it felt hard. I remember one part of her talk where she said, "You have to be willing to fail and get back up again." That sentence stuck with me. Every time I made a mistake in English, I reminded myself of those words. As days passed, I noticed a change in how I used English. My brain didn't feel like it was translating anymore. When I saw a word or heard a sentence, I understood it right away in English. It was like my mind was starting to live in English, not just visit for a moment. I also began to explore other speeches and interviews by American women I admired. For example, I watched videos of Maya Angelou, a famous poet, who spoke with such grace and rhythm that her words felt like music. I listened to Sheryl Sandberg, a business leader, who talked about leadership and resilience in simple, clear English. Each woman taught me different things, but the common thread was their ability to use English to express themselves clearly and powerfully. Practicing like this wasn't always easy. Sometimes I felt tired or frustrated. There were days when I thought, maybe I'm not good enough. But then I remembered Michelle Obama's words and kept going. I made a promise to myself. No matter what, I would practice English every day, even if only for a few minutes. One trick that helped me was to think in English about my daily life. When I woke up, I would say to myself in English, "Today is a good day. I will learn something new." When I cooked dinner, I described the ingredients and actions in English in my mind. I am cutting the tomatoes. The soup is boiling. This constant mental practice helped my brain stay in English mode longer. Over time, I felt a new kind of freedom. I wasn't just memorizing vocabulary or grammar rules anymore. I was thinking and feeling in English. This made learning fun instead of stressful. I began to look forward to watching talks, reading books, and speaking with people in English. One evening, after months of practicing, I noticed something amazing. I had a conversation with a friend in English, and I didn't have to stop and think about every word. My sentences came out naturally. My brain had finally made the switch. That moment gave me so much confidence. I knew that all the hours I spent listening, repeating, and imagining had paid off. I was no longer a beginner afraid of English. I was someone who could use English to connect with the world. This change made my life better in many ways. I was able to talk to new friends, watch movies without subtitles, and even apply for jobs that required English skills. Most importantly, I felt proud of myself. As I reflect on this journey, I realize how important it is to have role models like Michelle Obama. Watching her speak and practicing after her talk made me believe that learning English is not just about words. It's about growing as a person. It's about courage, patience, and hope. Now, I want to tell you about what happened after I began thinking in English naturally and how it changed my life completely. But before that, I hope my story about Michelle Obama and my practice inspires you to try new ways to learn English too. After months of practicing the habit of thinking in English, something truly amazing happened. It felt like my brain was rewiring itself, shifting from constantly translating Turkish words to simply thinking directly in English. I remember waking up one morning and noticing that my thoughts were in English before I even opened my eyes. Instead of planning my day in Turkish, I was thinking, what should I eat for breakfast? What meetings do I have today? All in English. It was like a small miracle, but it was actually the result of my hard work and dedication. At first, this new way of thinking made everything feel clearer and more natural. When I read English books, I didn't need to pause and translate every sentence in my head. Instead, the words flowed smoothly, and I could enjoy the story without interruptions. Watching English movies or TV shows became more fun too. I stopped relying on subtitles because my brain understood the language directly. This was a huge step forward because before, I always felt like I was missing some important parts or meanings when I depended on translations. I also noticed that I could speak more confidently with native English speakers. When I met new people from English-speaking countries, I no longer hesitated or worried about making mistakes. My thoughts were ready in English, so my words came out quickly and naturally. This confidence changed my entire experience of learning and using English. I was no longer afraid to try or to speak in public. One day I even had an interview for a better job here in France. The company was international and required good English communication skills. I felt nervous but excited. During the interview, I found it easy to express my ideas clearly in English. I told them about my background, my skills, and how I had improved my English by forcing my brain to think in the language. They were impressed by my fluency and confidence. A few days later, I got the job offer. This was a turning point for me. Learning to think in English had opened a new door to better career opportunities. But this change was not only about speaking or working. It affected my whole mindset. Thinking in English helped me develop new ways of solving problems. When I faced challenges, instead of feeling stuck, I started to think about solutions using English vocabulary and expressions. It was as if my brain was exercising, becoming stronger and more flexible. I even started dreaming in English sometimes, which was a funny and exciting experience. Dreaming in a new language means you have really started to live it. Another surprising effect was on my creativity. Since English is different from Turkish, thinking in English allowed me to see ideas and situations from fresh perspectives. I could describe emotions and pictures in new ways. This helped me not only in learning, but also in writing short stories and messages to friends. English became a tool for expressing myself more fully. I also found that my listening skills improved, naturally. Because I thought in English, I was more prepared when listening to people speak fast or use slang and idioms. I didn't feel lost or confused. Instead, I could guess meanings from context, just like native speakers do. This made watching English videos and conversations much easier and enjoyable. Of course, there were days when I felt tired or frustrated. Changing how you think is not simple. It takes patience and effort. But every time I pushed myself to keep practicing, I saw progress. I reminded myself of why I started this journey: to connect with people worldwide, to grow personally and professionally, and to enjoy the richness of English culture. Now, I want to share this advice with you. Making your brain think in English is not magic, but it is powerful. It changes not only your language skills, but also your confidence, creativity, and way of seeing the world. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes. And when it finally happens, your English will no longer feel like a foreign language. It will feel like a part of who you are. This journey has been one of the most important experiences of my life. It changed how I communicate, work, and even dream. And the best part? It's just the beginning. If you want to improve your English too, keep going. Trust me, your brain is capable of amazing things. Now that you know how thinking in English can transform your life, let me share some advice that can help you start or continue this exciting journey. If you want to improve your English, my best advice is simple. Make your brain think in English. I know this sounds easier said than done. At first, it might feel strange or even uncomfortable. When I started, I remember my mind constantly flipping back to Turkish. It was like my brain was stubborn, refusing to speak in a new language. But I promise you, with patience and practice, it becomes easier. Much easier than you imagine. The key is to train your brain the way you train your muscles at the gym. When you lift weights every day, your muscles grow stronger. When you force your brain to think in English every day, it becomes stronger and faster at using English. The process is the same. It takes time, effort, and a little bit of discipline. But the results are amazing. One of the first things I did was to stop translating everything in my head. When I saw a chair, instead of thinking sandali, which is the Turkish word, I forced myself to say chair right away. When I wanted to say I am hungry, I stopped myself from thinking the sentence in Turkish and immediately thought the English phrase. This was difficult at first, but after a while, it became a habit. You have to keep practicing this switch every day. Another great tip is to talk to yourself in English. Yes, I know it sounds funny, but I started talking aloud to myself while cooking, walking, or even cleaning my room. For example, when I made breakfast, I would say, I am boiling water. Now I am making tea. This helped me get used to speaking English without worrying about making mistakes in front of others. You don't have to speak perfectly. The goal is to get your brain comfortable with English words and sentences. Imagining stories in English is also a powerful way to practice. I used to create little stories about my day or my future dreams. For example, I imagined myself traveling to New York and meeting famous people like Oprah Winfrey or Michelle Obama. I pictured conversations in English and how I would introduce myself and ask questions. This kind of mental exercise prepares your brain to use English naturally in real life. Listening to inspiring people who speak English clearly is very helpful too. Watching interviews, speeches, or TED Talks by people like Oprah Winfrey or Michelle Obama helped me a lot. They speak slowly, clearly, and with feeling. When I listened carefully, I learned new words and phrases. Sometimes I repeated their sentences aloud to practice pronunciation and rhythm. You can find many videos online that are free and easy to understand. At first, you might feel shy or scared to make mistakes. I felt that too. But the truth is, making mistakes is part of learning. Every mistake teaches your brain something new. Instead of worrying, try to enjoy the process. Think of it like a game where every day you level up a little bit. Celebrate small successes, like understanding a sentence without translating or thinking an entire thought in English. Another thing I did was to label objects in my house with English words. I put sticky notes on the door, table, window, and other items with their English names. This constant exposure helped me memorize words and use them automatically. You can do this too. It's a simple but very effective trick. Remember, learning a language is not about perfection. It's about communication. Your goal is to express your ideas and feelings, not to speak like a native speaker overnight. Be patient with yourself. When you think in English, you are already making huge progress. It also helps to set small daily goals. For example, decide to learn 5 new English words each day, or to think in English for at least 10 minutes, without switching back to your native language. When you reach your goal, reward yourself. This creates motivation and makes learning fun. I also recommend writing a daily journal in English. At first, just write simple sentences about your day. This helps you organize your thoughts in English and practice vocabulary. Over time, you will notice your writing becomes clearer and easier. Writing also reinforces thinking in English, because you have to translate your thoughts directly onto paper in English words. If you want to take it further, try to find language exchange partners or join English-speaking groups online. Speaking with others regularly helps your brain get used to real conversations. Don't worry if you don't have many friends who speak English. There are many websites and apps where you can practice with people worldwide. I did this and made some wonderful friends who encouraged me. Lastly, don't forget to have fun. Learning English through stories, songs, movies, and games is the best way to keep your brain interested. When you enjoy what you do, your brain works better. So watch your favorite movies in English, sing along to songs, or read short stories. All of these activities will help your brain think naturally in English. I want you to remember one important thing. Your brain is like a muscle. The more you train it to think in English, the stronger and faster it will become. This new way of thinking will open up many opportunities. You will feel more confident talking to new people, traveling, studying, or working abroad. For me, making my brain think in English changed my life. It helped me connect with amazing people like Oprah and Michelle Obama, even if only through their words. It gave me the confidence to speak and dream bigger. And it can do the same for you. So start today. Begin with small steps. Talk to yourself in English. Imagine stories. Listen to inspiring speakers. Keep practicing every day. Before you know it, your brain will be thinking in English naturally, and that is when true learning happens. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope it inspires you to take your English to the next level. Remember, you can do it. Just make your brain think in English. If you liked my story and want more tips on learning English easily, Please like this video, share it with your friends, comment below your favorite part, and don't forget to subscribe to English Tone for more fun stories and lessons. Let's learn English together.